Welcome again, soldiers. Today's video is a bit complex, but it's very much related to Call of Duty community as a whole, both mobile and PC, but a big loss to the mobile and to the non-West community of this franchise when Warzone Mobile has been shutting down its goes down with the opportunity of the Battle Royale fans for mobile community. So even if you have a PC to continue the journey of your esports and competitive dreams, you don't have an options and many difficulties on your ways to achieve it. So now let me explain it properly, what I am talking about. Why esports only exist on mobile, especially for Asian regions, and Activision is intentionally planning this strategy to give more advantage only to the West content creator and to the selective competitive players. So let's get started, shall we? To the average player in North America or Western Europe, Call of Duty, Warzone is the definitive, fast-paced battle royale experience. It is a world where single-digit ping is normal, LAN events are a drive away, and the game receives massive seasonal updates that completely alter the meta. But there is a hidden reality to this multi-billion-dollar franchise. If you log in from South Asia, the Middle East, or parts of Latin America, you aren't playing the same game. You are trapped in an entirely different ecosystem, one plagued by terrible server routing, triple-digit latency, and a competitive scene that doesn't even know you exist. While other live service giants like Valorant, Dota, or Counter-Strike spent the last decade building deep global roots, Activision built a fortress around the West. This is the story of how the PC ecosystem of Call of Duty was designed from day one to ignore the global market, and why its hyper-accelerated lifespan makes it almost impossible for underrepresented regions to survive. The biggest problem with the modern Call of Duty franchise isn't the gunplay. It's the identity crisis behind the entire ecosystem. Because whether people want to admit it or not, Warzone, multiplayer, esports, servers, balancing decisions, events, even update timings. Almost everything in modern COD feels heavily designed around Western audiences first, while the rest of the world is treated like secondary traffic. And over the years, that gap has become impossible to ignore. When you look at regions like North America and parts of Europe, Call of Duty feels alive. Fast matchmaking, stable servers, competitive tournaments, creator support, LAN events, low ping experiences, massive marketing campaigns. But outside those major regions, the experience becomes completely different. For players in Asia, Africa, South America, the Middle East, and smaller regions in general, Call of Duty often feels unfinished, unstable, and unsupported compared to other global live service games. And this is where the frustration really starts. Because Activision markets Call of Duty as a global franchise, but many systems inside the game don't actually feel global at all. Take servers, for example. One of the biggest complaints for years has been poor regional server coverage. Players constantly experience high ping, packet burst, desync, hit registration problems, and lag compensation issues, unstable matchmaking. And unlike games that heavily invest into long-term regional infrastructure, Call of Duty often feels like it only prioritizes locations with the highest Western player concentration. That creates a massive competitive disadvantage for international players. You can have the same skill level as someone in NA or EU, but if you're permanently playing on 80 to 150 ping while others play on 10 to 20 ping, the game instantly becomes unfair. And in a fast-paced shooter like Warzone or multiplayer, milliseconds matter. Gunfights are decided instantly. Movement timing matters instantly. Server delay changes everything, which means many players outside the core regions never truly experience the game the way it was intended to be played. The foundation of any competitive first-person shooter is its infrastructure. In games where human reaction time is measured in milliseconds, connection quality determines who wins a gunfight. Activision leverages massive cloud providers like AWS and Google Cloud, but their regional deployment is notoriously uneven. While Western countries feature incredibly dense data center coverage, vast stretches of the rest of the world are treated as an afterthought to routing crisis. Even when local servers exist, local internet service providers, ISPs, frequently route regional traffic through completely illogical international hubs to save on peering agreements. It is a common horror story for a player in South Asia to watch their data travel thousands of miles to a London or Singapore data center just to match with a player a few hundred miles away. The result? The dreaded packet burst or extrapolating icons become permanent fixtures on the UI. The game's aggressive, skill-based matchmaking SBMM compounds this issue. Because the local player pool on PC is smaller due to these poor conditions, the matchmaking algorithm prioritizes finding a lobby of your skill level over finding a lobby close to you. To find a match, the system routinely pulls regional players into distant Western or East Asian lobbies, forcing them to play on a brutal 130 to 180 ms disadvantage. On a platform like PC, where players run high refresh rate monitors and mechanical inputs, this latency disparity kills the competitive experience before the countdown timer even hits 0. Now compare that to titles like Fortnite, Valorant, League of Legends, CS, or even mobile esports ecosystems. Those games invested aggressively into global infrastructure. More servers, regional tournaments, localized support, grassroots esports scenes, long-term competitive ecosystems. But Call of Duty on PC especially feels extremely centralized. The esports scene is another example. Most major COD esports opportunities revolve around North America and selected Western markets. The CDL itself is heavily NA focused. Most organizations, creators, sponsors, and opportunities are concentrated there. Meanwhile, talented players from smaller regions struggle to even enter the ecosystem. No proper regional leagues, minimal tournament exposure, limited local support, few pathways to professional growth. And because of that, many international players never even attempt competitive COD. Seriously, there's simply no ecosystem built for them. And then comes the biggest issue of all, lifespan. Even if you manage to look past the connection issues, you run directly into the structural design of the franchise, the annual release cycle. Unlike true live service PC titles like Counter-Strike 2 or League of Legends, which treat their games as decade-long platforms that allow regional communities and net cafes to grow over time, Call of Duty operates on a strict, fast-paced commercial clock. Every single year, the premium title resets. This model is fine for the Western consumer market, which relies heavily on a highly active console culture and disposable income for annual $70 entries. But for the global PC market, this rapid turnover is toxic. By the time a regional PC community adapts to a game's mechanics, weapon metas, and optimal optimization configurations, the publisher is already marketing the next title. Warzone attempts to bridge this gap by remaining free to play, but its engine is constantly ripped apart and rebuilt to fit the latest annual title's mechanics. This constant state of flux fragments, player progression, and demands continuous, high-end hardware upgrades that alienate budget-focused PC regions. It is a live service game with the shelf life of milk. Call of Duty is one of the few massive franchises that still behaves like an annual reset machine every year. New title, new grind, new meta, new bundles, new integration, new balancing chaos. Old content abandoned. Warzone was supposed to evolve into a long-term platform, but even that suffered identity resets constantly. Maps disappear, mechanics change, movement systems get replaced, weapons become obsolete overnight, communities split between different eras of the game. Instead of building one stable live service ecosystem for 10+ years, COD often feels designed for short-term engagement cycles and yearly monetization bursts. That model works financially, especially in Western console markets where annual COD culture has existed for decades. But globally, it creates fatigue, Players from unsupported regions already struggle with servers and accessibility. And then the game itself keeps resetting before communities can properly grow. The ultimate proof of Call of Duty's Western bias lies in its competitive landscape. The Call of Duty League, or CDL, is a highly restrictive franchise system. Look at the team distribution list United States has. Optic, Texas, FaZe, Vegas, Cloud9, New York. Canada has Toronto, KOI, Vancouver, Surge. Europe only has Paris, Gentlemates, and same with Middle East, it only has Riyadh, Falcons out of the entire league. Almost every single spot is concentrated right in North America. For an aspiring PC player outside these zones, there is virtually no pathway to professionalism. There are no grassroots, publisher-backed regional qualifiers for South Asia, the Asia-Pacific region, or Latin America that carry meaningful paths into the main circuit. The Challengers Amateur Division operates almost exclusively on Western servers, meaning an international team trying to qualify would have to compete in online tournaments with an unplayable network disadvantage, while other titles crown global champions from Europe, Asia, and the Americas alike. The Call of Duty champion is, by design, almost always going to be North American. Call of Duty's Western focus isn't an accident. It's a calculated business strategy. The franchise is built on the historic momentum of Western console culture and high-margin seasonal spending. But as the gaming landscape continues to shift heavily toward long-term PC platforms across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, this strategy leaves an enormous blind spot. By failing to invest in local server infrastructure, refusing to establish worldwide esports structures, and sticking to an annual release cycle that disrupts stability, Call of Duty has made its stance perfectly clear. It is a world-class shooter, but only if you live in the right hemisphere. For everyone else, it remains a beautiful, high-fidelity experience that they are forced to watch from the sidelines. That's why many international players slowly move toward games with longer stability and better regional investment. Games where progress actually feels permanent. Games where esports ecosystems grow locally. Games where servers exist closer to players. Games where developers communicate consistently with global audiences. And honestly, this is why Call of Duty Mobile exploded so hard internationally. Because for the first time, many regions finally felt prioritized. More accessible matchmaking, better regional reach, stronger Asian player base, more localized communities, lower hardware barriers. CODM succeeded globally in ways PC Warzone often struggled to replicate outside Western territories, which ironically proves the franchise absolutely can thrive worldwide if the infrastructure and support actually exist. At the end of the day, Call of Duty is still one of the biggest FPS franchises ever created. The gunplay is iconic, the movement is addictive, the gameplay moments are unmatched when the game actually works properly. But the modern ecosystem still feels heavily built around Western markets first, while many international communities are left fighting poor ping, limited opportunities, weak server coverage, and short-lived yearly systems. And until Activision truly commits to treating Call of Duty like a long-term global platform, instead of a region-focused annual product, that frustration probably won't disappear anytime soon. So guys, this is it. Don't ask me why I play Call of Duty Mobile when I have a PC. This is the reason, and at the same time, the only mobile game I love the most is CODM, and I will still wait for the global release of CODM PC. I know it sounds controversial, but I will still keep hopes for this amazing game. So for now, stay frosty, soldiers. Until then, stay safe.